All right, everybody. How are you doing? Before we start jumping into all the questions, I want to just say hi to everybody.
We're great. We've
Very
been
well,
itching to do this for months, years, to like just finally be able to talk to people with it behind us. And yeah, a week away from it coming out. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy to have gotten a message the other day from Alex where everybody's saying that they like talking to me. I was having a
man.
really rough day that day, so thank you for everybody like being like, yeah, I want to talk to this guy because he
Yeah.
loves their shit.
We saved the best for last, mate. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's always the repetition, isn't it? We always have you as the last one, just so we've got that little bit of extra time to play.
Hell yeah, awesome. All right, so I'm gonna count us in. Alex, I know you're recording, so you're gonna send it to me after. So I'll count us in. I got a little intro, as you guys know, and then we'll jump right into it. All right, so three, two, one. Joining us today for the third time is Dead Mouse Productions and Cult Screenings crew, Chris Griffiths, Eastwood Allen, first time, and Gary Smart. Go ahead and do it. Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Talking about RoboDoc. What's going on, guys?
Everything's going on at the moment, just surreal, whirlwind. But yeah, it's great to be back talking to you again after the last time, obviously with Hollywood Dreams and Pennywise before that.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of work that all of you are doing. And Eastwood, I know this is your first time being on here, and just the work that everybody's doing with these documentaries lately is phenomenal. I love the way all you craft a story and how you do this one thing that I'm starting to realize a lot in these documentaries that I don't see anybody else doing is that you always get reaction shots from the people that you are interviewing when they're talking about them. And it cracks me up every single time. It happens a lot in this one. So great job on everybody's part for doing this because this is a big documentary.
Yeah.
4 episodes.
Good thing that Eastwood was let me have a look at some of the edits, because that whole reaction thing, I was like, oh yeah, that works quite well actually. Shit, we need that in these other ones. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'll say it publicly on the record. I kind of nabbed that from him, to be honest. And and you're right. It really does bring things to life, I think, because you say documentary, maybe not so much now, but certainly historically, and you're like, oh, cool, fun, people talking. But that's not what we want to do. We want to bring these people to life. And to be honest, we bloody struck gold with this particular project, with everyone. I hope it shows, but watching it myself, it's like, fuck, man, these people are so charismatic. I
Yeah.
can't get over how lucky we were for so many people as well. So testament to Eastwood for actually getting out all those good bits.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I was surprised at how many people are in this one because like I watched all the other documentaries that you have out so far that I can see. And like they've been pretty big, you got extensive cast and crew from multiple films, whatever one that you're talking about. But this one, it was just like hits just keep on coming and keep on coming. So what was it like having to gather all these people? I guess Eastwood, we can go straight to you.
Yeah, sure. So we started out and we had Gary and Mike, our other producer, had booked 16 people, starting with
Wow.
Ed Newmeyer, Mike Miner, John Davison, who was sort of the writers and the main producer. And then once we got out there in the States, people came out of the woodwork. We'd be speaking to somebody, and they said, "Oh, I know, I've got that guy. I still talk to. I'll get him to come around." And then Gary
Oh,
would be
wow.
liaising with them and sorting it. Gary reached out to Ray Wise on Twitter and said, "Ray, we're in the studio. I think we were with Jesse Goins, who's the who plays Joe Cox, one of the other Bodycook gang members." And Ray was like, "Amazing, I'll come." And he was literally there within 20 minutes. And Chris is like a huge Ray Wise fan, so he had to basically just right. Ray Wise is coming around, and luckily, I think it's probably worked out better that way, didn't it, Chris? That you didn't have like days knowing that he was going to come. It was literally
No,
20 minutes.
fucking
And
Leland Palmer from Twin Peaks, man. God,
but
guy
I
crush.
agree though, Dustin. Like one of the things when we watch documentaries is part of the enjoyment of a retrospective is seeing the people, what they look like now, getting to spend some time with them. So like being conscious of that when we're putting the documentary together, we try and introduce people in a fun way. So it's not just them just appearing. It's like giving them a moment to, like, obviously when Wella comes in, there's like, we make a big deal of that. The same with like the Hoven. Nancy Allen, there's a transition of like her close up from a close up in Carrie, and the fact that it's like, there she is in another famous film. This is what she looks like now. We do an intro with the Bodykit gang. So like, it's making, because that's what I look forward to when I watch a documentary and it's, you know, whatever it's on Blade Runner. It's like, I can't wait to see Harrison Ford's just face pop up. So like, that's part of the fun, and so it's just leaning into that, having fun with the green screen. RoboCop is a layered film, and it is so much fun to watch, and like, we wanted to make sure that it felt very much, the documentary felt very much like that, and it was sort of that, you know, it's literally playing alongside a fun film. Let's be playful with it, and like Chris said, the cast and crew were phenomenal. They were all so happy to like talk to us. We didn't have to, you know, encourage, you know, try and get people to talk. They was just like, I'll give you whatever you want, and that was amazing to see. We were so fortunate.
Yeah, it's really, really cool to see. And I was surprised by some of the people that were here. Like, you got all of the main like ensemble cast on here, and crew, everybody behind the scenes. It was incredible. And Gary, I wanna go to you, because I know these documentaries, they're so fun, and Screenbox has been so amazing to all of you. But Gary, I know you're a huge fan of everything. So compared to all the other ones that have came out so far, or ones that are in production, where does this stand for you on the list of, like, is this your favorite one, or where is it? Like in the middle?
It's really weird because it's the one that was always kind of like the weight around all of our necks, really. So when we first did Leviathan, and that's got lots of problems. Leviathan has, when we rewatch it. We tried to do a new edit for Arrow, which we're proud of. I think we could even go back over it again, maybe with the 40th anniversary of Hellraiser, Chris. He's from some animations. I think so. You know, that was kind of our baby at first, and then obviously Fright Night. I love Fright Night. I think again the lads did a phenomenal job on that. That's when we first started realizing what could happen with the doc, and obviously having Eastwood come on board with that, the animations, and making something really fun and quirky, which we didn't really have on Hellraiser. Then obviously our next one to film would have been RoboCop, but the problem is it got so big that, you know, it kind of got lost then over the years. Lots of work happening behind the scenes of Eastwood and Chris, but obviously then we released, you know, the last couple of years we've released lots of stuff in one foul swoop. But it's really strange for me, RoboDoc, is because it's the one that's probably caused, I know all of us, but me personally as a producer, the most stress, because I've ended up being the arsehole, unfortunately, on these projects, because I'm the one that's kind of talking about contractual issues with the lads and talking about legal stuff. And obviously then, you know, when Eastwood's got a great idea, it's me saying, oh, we can't do this because of the following reasons. It's been the hardest because of that reason, I think. But it's also probably been the most like rewarding because it's been such a mammoth task for everybody, and particularly again, as I keep saying, Eastwood, to see it finally out is just a huge kind of achievement. So I've got a very soft spot for it because I think it's got so much baggage, and it's one of those things where it's like anything in life, when it's shit when it's happening and it's horrible. The production was great, but the aftermath, and then you forget how bad it was because how good the gold is at the end. And we always used to say, I think the mantra we had from day one with Court Screens was, we're looking for gold, and you know, and we may take years, we may piss off the pledgees, we may contradict ourselves sometimes, we may make promises we can't keep because the intention's there. We always try and achieve the best, really, what we want to see, and I think this is the one that's really come out, which is just mind blowing, and I'm really proud of the fact that it is the first ever scene by scene dissection of any film. So that's why I think it's really important to us, and particularly myself, and obviously the rest of the lads, because it's a very unique documentary. I'm sure it'll be copied. I'm sure there'll be lots of documentaries coming out in the next couple of years, which are scene by scene dissections. Brilliant. But I think, you know, we set the bar here really high. So it's technically it's our best. I think length, where it's boring, it's condensed, and it's action packed, and the pace is amazing. It's our best, and I think in regards to the interviewees, and as Eastwood has already mentioned, it's probably our best interviews, because I think the approach that the lads particularly did on the interviews was as fans, but as professional fans, I always call them, because you can be fanboys and obviously just be there, just kind of like gushing over people. But you can also be professional, where you know your shit,
Yeah.
you know exactly. I think that's what impressed the cast and crew, that these guys knew exactly what Peter Weller had to eat on day 5 of production. And I think that's so. Yeah, it's up there, at the moment as my favorite in terms of achievement and accomplishment.
Yeah, it's also really cool to see that's in multiple parts, because all the other ones I mean, there's been a few that were in multiple parts, but this one, for how big it is and how you really do dissect like each part of the film and like each process, like the making, how we created, how they were creating RoboCop, and then like this, and then everything behind the scenes, how they're getting all the bad guys together, and like the costume designs was absolutely amazing. Seeing the script, I'm always really interested with these documentaries to see how you always pull up scripts. There's always something there, and you're always highlighting, and then you hear them talking about something they added in there that wasn't on the script, and realize like, wow, like they're doing extra things. And a lot of the times people don't realize that there are things that are ad-libbed in there, or things that are slightly tweaked. So to go into a documentary of a film that I love, I grew up with RoboCop far too young. Like they were talking about it in there, how he was like 8 years old, 10 years old. I was one of those kids. I grew up watching this film and seeing the guy melting, and then everybody being blown to pieces and being like, what am I watching right now? And to like actually go through all that and see things that were added or subtracted from it, or that enhanced it, is always a joy. And you guys, every documentary you do, you enhance every film that I love to a whole nother level. With this, every scene, I had chills. The music was amazing. The writing is amazing. Like your direction on this, like I really do have to say, I love the Robert Englund doc a lot, but this one, the direction and how you're probing these questions behind the scenes, and then seeing everybody react to them, and then going to the scene, and then drawing, like doing like storyboards and like drawing the things out, or saying how this was supposed to be here but it wasn't, is so fucking entertaining. I love you guys.
We need to
That's
get
all
that on
that
the
is to
Blu-ray
it. I
cover,
love you
don't we?
guys.
So fucking entertaining. That's it. That's the quote to end them all. I think it's a reflection of the film. I've got to be fair. There's no doubt we put our efforts in every respect, but in a way we're kind of reacting off the film itself. I think Eastwood has said today, and I don't know if it was on this interview, so you can reiterate it, but it's the amount of fun we're having. It's so in depth. It's very exhaustive. I personally hope that people are going to look at it more than just, oh, well, it's just for RoboCop fans. It absolutely is. But it's showcasing an era of filmmaking that is just bygone now, and how impressive that was, how people used to do things without computers. But I think it's a film that works on so many levels. Narratively, it's fantastic. You can peel away so many layers. Technically, it's incredible. It's the zenith of stop motion and practical effects. And then actually further to that as well, which is why this is so exhaustive, is it's one of those films, again, quoting you, Eastwood, but, Jaws, Apocalypse Now, these films went through the 10 levels of hell, 11, 7 of hell to edit that however you want, to get the end product. So there's so many stories to tell. And I think that was one of our things. Yes, there's been some small documentaries, there's been EPKs, and things have been mentioned in the past. Like, it was tough, it was hot, it was this, it was that. But they've never, sorry to put it this way, had the bollocks to kind of go, but what exactly happened? And I think that's, again, a testament to the cast, fessing up that it was a bit of a shit show. Yes, we were at each other's throats, and yet they're all saying it with a smile.
Yeah.
John Davidson summarizes it perfectly by saying that time heals all pain, or whatever he says towards the end. So hats off to everyone on this project.
And just say this as well, I'm so happy that you mentioned the music, because I'm sure you're the same. Like I was every musician we've got in there, and we'll talk about like Sean Schaefer Hennessy's score, which is incredible, where we've got sort of like a sound alike to Robo, but it's not a rip off of Robo. It's so nice and elegant, and we wanted that in there, and that's often in there under Paul Verhoeven to match his sort of like genius. But then the music, I was fans of the guys that have given us the music to be in the soundtrack, and there's easily 100+ tracks in there. And I reached out to them and basically said, I'm doing a documentary. I would love to have some of your music. And so many of them were like, go at it. And it was the best thing ever at structuring the edit and then laying under the music and music, you know, Lost Years. We've got Meteor in there, we've got Calax in there, we've got so many, like New Arcade that did the title theme, which is incredible. Like, I hope people get a kick out of the intro. And Blood and Chrome, who's unfortunately not with us anymore, but he was a massive part as well. And he basically directed that intro himself.
Oh,
We
wow.
sort of had a few ideas in terms of like color palette and what we wanted to get across in terms of it's a, you know, we want it to feel analog, and we want it to feel you know, we want to see RoboCop being built. You know, what was going on behind the scenes with Bob Morton's crew when they were building RoboCop and keeping the left arm. And if you watch the animation, the left arm's the last thing to go. He was a huge RoboCop fan too, and I met that guy via Twitter, and he was like, I'll do whatever you want, and he lent us some music as well. But yeah, I'm glad that you've mentioned the music, because I was saying this earlier, like, I will just listen to the documentary on a run. I will literally just put it on and just to listen to the soundtrack and that running commentary, and I still listen to those guys. So we're so grateful that so many musicians offered to lend us some of their music.
Are you gonna put together a soundtrack for this? Are you gonna reach out and do like a best of?
It's a tricky one.
That'd
It's
be
been
great.
mentioned before. We're gonna do, I think we'll do like a Spotify playlist, and I know the guys, New Arcades, are going to release the intro theme on the day on the 29th when we drop our doc on Screenbox. So they're going to have a release, and then I'll put a playlist together, because yeah, I hope it just draws people to. I know there are a lot of synthwave sci-fi fans. You know, it usually goes hand in hand, but I hope it draws a lot of people to that music, because it is incredible. And I know Chris has become a big fan since we've been using the music.
I've had that best of or whatever, the one we collated. I've had that on my car like nearly every journey. And it's interesting, actually. You know, yeah, the music is on another level with this particular documentary. It's funny though, for me emotionally, how it's changed from fuck man, that's so cool. And then I'd be listening to it in the car over the years and sort of showcasing, you know, the emotional states we've gone through on this project, where it might automatically come up in my car, and I'll be like, I don't want to fucking hear this because I just don't want to think about RoboDoc right now. It's been so stressful. Now, you know, now we're at this stage, that shit's being played on loop. And yeah, it has opened my eyes. I love traditional synth, like, you know, your Tangerine Dreams and everything like that, the old school synth. But yeah, through this doc now, and it's hard to not associate it with it. I think that's what I'm going to find interesting. I think there'll be a lot of people that will be discovered because of this doc, but I think the association will go hand in hand after this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the music definitely was giving me chills. It's what helped a lot, and how it really plays with the emotions that everybody's like talking about for a certain scene. Like, picked great things to highlight on here. And it's so hard to pinpoint like one specific thing because of how much is in this documentary. But I don't get chills watching documentaries. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's some information. That's cool. Wow, I learned a little something new today. This one was like, I'm so into it. I rewatched all the segments last night, and I was like falling asleep watching it, but I'm like, I need to power through this. I love this documentary so much, and I'm so excited for everybody to go and see this. I'm gushing over it because how much I love RoboCop, and to see all these faces on here. And I guess to kind of transition into that, Gary, we can start with you. Out of everybody that was in this documentary that was interviewed, were you surprised at anybody that you got, or was there somebody that you were hoping you were going to get and they didn't want to come on?
I mean, I'm surprised we got Weller. That's a different story. We should probably come to that in a second. But I think we all wanted Rob Bottin. I think I'm a massive special effects fan, you know, and the work he did on Total Recall, and obviously the thing, and obviously bits, you know, I've tried to replicate some of his work, you know, in regards to, you know, the Mountain Man and stuff like that. He's an amazing artist, but we just couldn't get him. And you know, we've talked about it before, but I remember Ed Newman had been to see him a couple of days before, and he shows a photograph on his phone, and it was a robot in a balaclava. That's all it was. And just he could have been anybody. It could have been some bum from like that, from 7-Eleven. And he went, yeah, that's Rob Bottin, look. And it was like, yeah, can you get him for us? And then, again, I'm sure lads will elaborate on the story where he tried to get him for us, but I think we kind of were settled that we knew that we couldn't get him because we'd heard a story that he'd done a documentary before and he was kind of misquoted in a documentary and he wasn't very happy with that. So we said he'd never do another one again, and then he obviously left the industry and went to do real estate. So I think, and the fans know that as well. So if anybody does come and quotes going, on any articles or comments going, why didn't you get Rob Bottin? I think the general knowledge of most fans is you're not going to get Rob Bottin. But Weller, on the other hand, was the irritant for us because people were expecting him to be in it. So were we, and it took us 5 years to get him.
Wow.
But again, the story is its own documentary, really, about how we got him, and we could redo a lot of reenactments there. But I think getting him in the end was obviously well worth it, and I think it was well worth the stress because I think that when we watched the cut of Weller being included at Eastwood's house, the doc was already great. I loved it already, but then seeing Weller in it just completely changed everything. And that's not any kind of discredit on anybody else in the doc. Everybody's brilliant, but for us, I think it just meant that it was complete. We had Weller, we had Robert Burke, we had Richard Eden. We didn't have the guy from the made TV movies. We tried him, but we couldn't get him. But anyway, we had the three main RoboCops, and I think that's completist for us in a sense. So it's probably one documentary where the person who said no, we actually finally got that person, because we've had other docs where they've said no and we still couldn't get him, whereas he said no and it took 5 years and we got him. So, but there's other people. Lads are probably irritating me saying I love Ronnie Cox. I think he's one of the best 80s villains, and I think getting him in that chair for me was just like an absolute dream. It was I think it was the first day shooting, wasn't it? I think we had Ronnie.
He was early on.
Yeah,
one of the first days. So I think that was kind of the pinnacle for me, and that was virtually a couple of days into shooting of a 3-week shoot initially. So yeah, so Weller's the one that we tried hardest, and Bottin's the one I think we all probably wish we would have got. And just finally, very quick, I know I rabbit on. Miguel was one that we really wanted. We spoke to his agent; he had agreed to do it. At the time, they told us confidentially he was ill, obviously, which we couldn't obviously tell anybody that because I don't think it was public knowledge at the time that he was suffering from cancer. But he was keen to do it, and I think when we got there, I think he hadn't passed away. If I'm correct, I think he was really ill at the time, and then it wasn't long after he passed away, and we were just gutted, and obviously gutted, of course, because he passed away. But I just think we were that close to having him, and the fact he wanted to do it still, even when he was ill. But I think the days we were there, they just didn't line up, obviously, with medication and whatnot. So that was obviously, as fans, particularly for the lads, I think that was obviously quite devastating. But hopefully the doc is quite a nice legacy piece for him now. People talk very fondly of him, and there's lots of footage of him and conversations about him and his role. So I hope that's a legacy piece for him.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll just say as well, like when we did get Weller, and Chris and I were super nervous about the interview, and we had to do it remote because it was during lockdown. But the interview was absolutely phenomenal, and Chris and I were on our phone we were on like a Zoom asking the questions. But then Weller would talk for 10 minutes because he just loves to chat, and Chris and I would be like, "This is amazing. Have you even heard any of this before?" And we were both just like children on our phones. But then getting the footage and having a finished doc and being able to go take that out, drop in the main man. No better job. That was the most enjoyable part, and it took like 3 months to get Weller in the documentary and do all of the green screen. It was all shot in 4K, and we annotate the guns, and there was so much stuff. But just being able to have something that we were happy with, and we did our best with the doc without Weller. We got archive that is still partly in there, but it's archive that nobody's ever seen before of Weller talking. But to be able to go open that up, drop in the main man, and it's just lifted it to like an 11, and he was so great. he really does. Like Gary, when we show what he watched it at my house, and he just couldn't believe how sort of like animated and open and candid Weller was about himself, and reflecting on sort of him being a bit of a tyrant and really difficult, and causing issues, and
having sex with everybody.
I think it's really important as well with Weller, was that obviously it was very hard to get him. And then even when we had the contract in place, it was very, very strict contract. We'd never had that before. We normally have just a release form. That's it. We had an actual contract, which we had to get checked over and whatnot. But it was very clear in the contract that he wouldn't talk about the second film, and he wouldn't do any lines from the movie. And it was very restricted time. But I think once he got in and met the lads, and obviously had that connection with them, he just gave everything. And then he was doing lines from the film, which obviously in the doc and in the trailer, he was holding the gun. He was talking about the second film. I think that's testament to him as well. And it's difficult. I think it's a bad rep sometimes. He does, and I know it's persona that he likes to obviously portray. But I think that when we had him in the chair, or particularly the lads had him in the chair, again, I think I've said this a few times, that I think he knew it wasn't a fluff piece. He knew it wasn't some bog standard Blu-ray extra, and I think he got very comfortable. And because these two guys, like an encyclopedia of RoboCop anyway, and his career, he just got very relaxed. And you can see him in the doc, and I'm sure Eastwood will see even more editing, how he starts to get very sinking in his chair, and he starts to get more relaxed, and he's not as stiff as he was, and more, and the little glint in his eye, and and the smile. That's just gold for us. And I think I'm really happy we got him, and really happy that he's elevated it as well. Massively.
I'd say this is probably like the most challenging for me in terms of interviews. Some of them were. I think especially because their reputation precedes them, and in particular, Paul Verhoeven and Peter Weller. They're both these characters which had been built up for us from all these interviews and prior knowledge of like, they were quite difficult and quite tyrannical on the set and everything. So when it came time to meeting them, that first point of contact, you are literally shitting your pants.
Yeah.
And the beauty was, I think, on both him and Verhoeven, was it's a bit like a psychological back and forth. I mean, at the end of the day, we're there to do a job, there to do the interview, but at the same time, it's like, fuck, I just want to have a chat with you. Do you know what I mean? In a most professional way. And to be honest, there's definitely on both those interviews that moment where you just go, fuck, you're mine. We're talking. This is it. We can relax. You know what I mean? Then and as Gary said, their body language eases it up. I think, with Weller's, admittedly, for the first, I don't know what it was, like, it felt like an eternity, but half hour, 40 minutes, I was like, fuck, he's not talking much about RoboCop, and time is a ticking. And then we just had this one kind of off-camera moment, basically, where he spoke to us directly. And then at that moment, he just kind of completely opened up. And I think what I really enjoy about that, and I think, you have to make your interviewee comfortable, no matter what they're like, is come to that sort of reasoning with them. And then by the end, Eastwood had sort of laid out, we had written the questions together, and Eastwood made the smart call, because worried that we won't have enough time or he'll fob us off quickly, that let's prioritize the questions. We have to get these. These would be ideal. This would be okay. And anything thereafter. But it's when you go, shit, he's actually doing all of it. And by the end, we were able to, we kind of like, I say, looked at each other.
Like, just give him the gun, weren't we? We were like, give him the gun. So he'll play with the gun.
And should we kind of just admit that? So indirectly, but people say you might have been a bit of a dick on set. Should we get to that point of talking like that? And he did. He came back. And I think for me, in particular, with the pre-Weller version of the doc and the post-Weller, it might have looked a little bit like when you got to those moments and people are going like, yeah, he was a bit difficult on setting this and that. It looks like I think someone might have said to me, to be honest, like, oh, you're using those comments because you've got a chip on your shoulder. He doesn't want to be in your doc. It's like, well, no, it's the facts. But actually then to get Weller to counteract that and totally embrace it as well. And I'm not saying it's justified in any way, but to be fair, it's like, look, you try and wear that suit. You try and do this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking fair game to you, fair play, So I think that's, again, what we look to do with our docs is not make fluff pieces. I think we had a bit of a mini debacle, I've said before, about when we were doing Pennywise. There was some opinion like, oh no, we better not say that the spider wasn't that great. And I'm like, the fucking spider wasn't that great in the film. We need to address that. Do you know what I mean? It's the same for anything. It's not good. We're not there to, do an exploitative piece about how crap something is. It's like, no, let's address the elephant in the room, and let's unpack why it didn't work or why something was the way it was, because otherwise it's not a documentary. It's just a happy-go-lucky fluff
Yeah,
piece talking
yeah,
about
nothing
something.
bad. You need to have some sort of contention in there because there's always contention in anything that you do, or who you're talking to, especially when it comes to films. Like it's a huge family, big production, especially on this. And you can see the amount of people that are there, and even us going through credits for the people who weren't there, it was a big production. There's a lot of things happening at Orion at the time, and they were dealing with that stuff. But they, if they were with any other company, and they even like said this wouldn't have happened. The movie just would not have happened. RoboCop would be done. It'd be thrown in the trash. And they were even like highlighting that, like when they were bringing all the papers, people just throw the script in the trash because it says RoboCop on it, And it's like it's so true, especially at that time. But going back to Peter, yeah, like I'm now that you're saying this and thinking about, how would this doc feel without him being there? It still would have been really good and very entertaining, but you wouldn't have had like all of his side of things and him talking about being in all this stuff. And as soon as you hear his voice in here, immediate chills, and then he says the line, and you're like, you guys fucking nailed this. Like I don't know anybody else that would have done this as good as you. Like you have a power of bringing out the best in everybody. Well, best and worst of everybody, and it's a good thing. Great interviewers, guys. Seriously.
I think it was, sorry. I think someone we haven't mentioned. It's funny because he's John Davison. Because I know that you guys are really shitting yourself with him. But I think again, talking about getting the best out of people, I know it was a difficult interview, and again he opened up. But the relationship that John had after, with particularly Eastwood, for all those years after, providing Eastwood with like lots and lots of obviously archive. He went obviously to, I think there's some university, got loads of archive for us, and he had, that was all of his stuff and giving permission to use it. That again was somebody who we were told was quite a difficult person and very, very producer. He was very kind of like hard, but he opened up, and and I think he became quite close to the production really in the aftermath of those years. I think that's how we treat people. We've always said that we always treat people with the respect they deserve. And I think because we are fans, and no matter what we're doing, if it's on Robert England or it's on Pennywise or on this, we aren't doing it just because we want to get a DVD out there or a documentary out there. And hopefully, again, about obviously bigging ourselves up, we know what we're talking about. And I think when you know what you're talking about to an interviewee, they then understand that they're in safe hands, really. And they do open up, and it becomes a conversation, it becomes a friendship. I know I've made friends with people we've interviewed over the years, and I'm still close to those people as much as you can be, being this side of the pond. And I know the lads have as well. And there's people, particularly obviously with Eastwood, who's got very close to, and obviously with Chris. That's just, I think, a testament of them as well as the team as well. And again, we get gold on screen at the end of it.
I remember chatting to John Davison, who found a load of stuff in his garage, and
that's always the best.
Being so grateful that he shipped that over to me, but being so grateful, but then at the same time going, is there anything else in there? Because what I didn't want to happen, and it still might happen, is him go, oh yeah, Eastwood, by the way, I've just found 17 tapes that were under a sweater, and it's just like, and then we're like, shit, the stuff, everything he sent was absolute gold. And again, that's another thing of Chris and I was opening the packages up and calling Chris and hitting spacebar to watch this stuff because I had a lot of it digitized, but we didn't know what was on it because the people digitizing it, I was like, screen off. I don't want you guys to see what it is. Let me know once it's done. I'll come pick it up. And they gave it to me, and then I literally opened it up, hit spacebar, and then called Chris, and I was like, "You're never gonna guess what we've got." Literally, like a dream come true, getting to see a load of this stuff, and it's all in the documentary. But that's all thanks to John Davison. A massive shout out as well to Steve Lee, who was our sort of connect from this side, who went over and scanned things for us and had stuff shipped out and labeled things and had things documented. And we couldn't have, obviously at this side of the pond, we relied on those people, but we're just so fortunate that people were willing to give us the time of day.
Do you remember going to Paul Salmon's house?
We did that on Pennywise, didn't we? Or did you?
I
You
did,
went to full
did
sample
it.
to the
Yeah, I
but
think I did.
we went the following year to get some RoboCop.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
We,
two
we,
stuff.
yeah, we went for anything. We were searching through his like garage and his archive. And there were tapes and everything. And I remember going, "Fucking, there's loads of shit." And it was all RoboCop 2, RoboCop 2. We were like, "Where's RoboCop 1?" I remember Ace was saying to me, "Get as much as you can on the first film, not the second." Well, we had enough on the second one already, hadn't we? And it was just fucking mounds of documentation and stills and videos of number in two of all things. But again, I know you was going to say, Chris, I interrupted you. Sorry about Paul. Just how great everybody was. It sounds, again, it's cliche. It sounds really bullshit now, but we had people coming in with just one Polaroid photograph, going, "Please use this." Holding T-shirts, and people coming in with the boards of the original kind of like company logo. People were really, really keen to be involved and bring their memories and share their memories. We had no issues of archive. I know we were shitting ourselves, particularly me and Eastwood was getting the release forms, but we all came flooding back. People were really keen just to share. And it was like, shit, sometimes it's difficult to get stuff out of people. It wasn't that difficult. It was difficult to find what we actually needed, but we got a lot of stuff sent to us. It was like, "Thanks for that newspaper clipping with the coffee stain on. That was brilliant." But yeah, we got everything off people. So I think, again, it's cliche and bullshit, but the cast and crew, I think, again, it comes across on screen, doesn't it? Really, how engaged they were and how proud they are of being RoboCop.
We had a moment as well, just to talk about like moments outside of the filming where we were just being fans with like Donna Keegan, unfortunately she's got a credit of a rape victim. Where I was like, oh, we can't label a rape victim, but that's what she's credited as. But the fact that she was sat with myself and Chris, and there's like a famous RoboCop edit, which is like what a load of students put together. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called the RoboCop remake, and there's a scene in there where they go to town on the rape scene where
yep, I have seen that. It's pretty wild.
It's nuts, isn't it? Literally nuts. It's literally nuts. There's like just a load of men getting a load of prosthetic penises out and around.
Yeah.
It's really funny, but she hadn't seen that, so
seen
we filmed her reaction watching that, and we've not actually used it anywhere, but she was like amazed at how good the level of production is, and we did the same with like SD Namath, who played Bixby Snyder. He had no idea that there was like any sort of pop culture around his character. I remember when we asked him in the interview, like, how many people have come up to you and asked you to do the line? And he said nobody, and we were just a bit sad. And we were showing him on our phones just the fact you can get T-shirts with like buy that for $1 on it and mugs, and he was just like, wow, he couldn't genuinely he couldn't actually believe that it was like a bit of a phenomenon with his character, and that was just amazing as well.
Hell yeah. Getting the motion, the movement coach in here was awesome too, seeing how Peter was developing that, because as a fan you think, oh, okay, he was just thinking of that, whatever, but to see what he was going through and all these different movements and how he was even affecting how Paul was shooting certain scenes to accompany the movement of Peter was phenomenal. Like I wish I had enough pull like you guys have for all of these people to get them on my show to interview them, because it's crazy. Like every 5 minutes there was a new person, and this is 4 episodes and they're all an hour plus, and I don't know how you guys had stamina for all this. I would have been so tired and be like, someone else needs to come and do this. This is crazy. There's so much stuff to sift through, and wow, just congrats. Like,
it's a beast.
I'm speechless.
That kept growing. It really is a beast that just kept growing. And as I've said before, we wanted to make, I just remember telling Gary, like, oh, I want to do RoboCop. And there was always this just angst about doing a project like this. It's a very well-known IP, a popular character. There have been some docs on it before and this and that. And so, originally the idea was relatively limited of like, right, 2 hours, let's get who we can, let's do somewhat of a deep dive on it, more so than ever's done before. But I think it's just organically grown into this behemoth. And I think that's just why it was so challenging. It was a wave we were given to ride. And at times it was really, really hard to ride that wave. But it's the perseverance of everyone on here that we kind of came through with it. And thank God for Screenbox saying, yeah, of course, 4 hours, the whole debate about, splitting it into a docu-series. And even I was a bit like, Really, do people want to see a series or find out what happens next episode on the making of a film, which is almost quite obvious, unlike these Netflix serial killer docs where, oh, then this happens, you're like, fuck, I gotta find out what happened next. We're just talking about a making of, but we were told by someone in the early stages who'd done a piece on RoboCop before, like, you're never going to do a documentary on that. You're never, and then later on, you're never going to make it 4 hours. You're never going to have it as a series. And now here we are. We've been, in a way, kind of like reflective of the making of the film. It's been at times traumatic, very rewarding, a lot of effort put in. And actually to have a distributor in this case, but like Orion with RoboCop, a kind of a company that's gone, nope, you do it the way you think it should be done. So I think there are parallels between the making of the doc and the original film, to be honest. I can't help but watch parts of it and go like, oh, I know what you mean, Paul. I know what you mean, John, or whatever.
I always remember having a phone debate or text debate with Eastwood about the length. And we're working with some sales agents who work with us all the time, Lawrence and Hank, and they're brilliant. They actually did this deal with Screenbox for us, and they've been great. But it was very much a few years ago, this kind of mantra that everything had to be 100 minutes. No matter what the doc was, it was 100 minutes. And our previous docs were 3 hours for Fright Night, and it was 7 hours for fucking Leviathan.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But it was like, it had to be 100 minutes. And I'm on the phone to Eastwood going, it's got to be 100 minutes. He said, it can't be. There's no way it can be. And I'm go, it has to be. And then I had him having an argument with me going, I cannot edit a documentary which is scene by scene dissection for a 90-minute film in 100 minutes. It's not possible. And I'm going back to them going, it's not possible. And I go, has to be 100 minutes. And in the end, I think Eastwood went, just fucking grow a pair of balls and tell them. And I went, it's going to be 4 hours or it's going to be nothing. And they caved in, and they've now come back, and I'll give them, give them the credit to be men. They've come back and gone, you know what, we were wrong. We never thought we could sell a 4 hour doc, and we did. And again, I know Chris was pushing for that from day one, but I think that one conversation with Eastwood pissed me off and said, basically, it's your company, you tell them. Give you some credit, Eastwood. It worked.
Well, I know we can all be stubborn. I was doing it for the best end result. This is the thing,
right?
No,
yeah,
people are going to look at this, and there'll still be people who'll go, 4 hours, that's way too long. It's longer than, how many times do you say, oh, the making of longer than the film? It needs to be.
Yeah.
So many reviews. But the way we saw it, and the way I saw it was, if we don't tell this, and if we don't use this gold that we've been given, put it in the public and for public to see, and we just say, right, 100 minutes and we'll leave 2.5 hours on the floor, no one's ever going to see that. That's going to be me and Chris watching it every year. But why would we not want that out in the open? It's absolute gold. We're not making it long for the sake of it. And obviously the scene by scene analysis, I gave it a try, the 2 hour thing, and I was just heartbroken doing it. But I was like, I just want as many people to be able to see this. But then there was the time, and again, Gary was patient with me, but it wasn't like an ego thing. It wasn't me just going, I'm not changing anything. It was more just the end result. Chris and I are always thinking, as super fans, what do we want to see? What do we want to hear? What have we heard a ton? And we can cover it, but it doesn't need to be in that much depth because it's already out there. And what areas do we want to proper push on that no one's ever heard about? Like the sound effects, music, sound effects. I'm very sort of sound orientated, but talking about the sound effects, that's never been covered. There's so many aspects to it. The bitches in there that have never done interviews, a lot of the Bodykick gang have never done interviews. They get a lot of screen time because the stuff that they've got is absolutely incredible. But yeah, the episodic thing was just, it was for the end result. It wasn't I can't be asked to edit it, because this has been such a great job. It's just been a massive undertaking, but it's been so much fun.
I think it's that challenge thing, isn't it? And I think it's again, it's doing something which is breaking the mold where nobody else was doing it. And we were told, again, it's not going to happen. There's no way possible. Like Chris was told the very first day. I remember sitting in Chris's flat in 2016. When that chap emailed us and said to us, you're never going to make this project. Stop wasting your time. And I remember Chris being a little bit kind of a bit browbeaten by it and go, oh, fuck it. And I remember saying, fuck him. There's even more reason to do it now. Fuck exactly. This guy. And I won't mention his name, but that spurred us on. And I think again, being told no so many times in regards to we cannot have a 4 hour doc. And I think because we'd already done something like Leviathan, which was long and laborious, we'd already done that, and it never needed to be 4 to 7 hours. We had a really unfortunately very bad director on that one, and thankfully Chris salvaged it as the new director of the Arrow Cut. But I think I think breaking that mold and just doing something different and challenging yourself, and credit as always where it's given. It's I think just 4 hours of gold really is, or 5 hours of gold nearly.
It's a justifiable runtime, I think, this one, because there has been long form docs. I mean, fuck it, I'll admit I've been playing Friday the 13th again. And as soon as I have any encounter with Friday the 13th, I'm like, right, I'll watch the films. I'm going to watch Crystal Lake Memories, and that's about 6 hours, give or take, and I can't get through that shit.
I know.
Once.
Is it crazy? Sorry, Chris. Is it crazy for me to say that I want more? I want more on RoboCop.
Don't say it to Eastwood. He'll have a fucking 9-hour director's cut soon.
I'll take it.
It could have been longer, but I was conscious. It's 35. What is it? It's 4 hours 35 minutes. There's another hour on the special features that's already been produced. There could easily be another 2. Like, I'm not even joking. Yeah. Like, we had.
I want it. Give it to me. Right now. I will get
so much. We had so much.
What people forget, I think it's really strange, because I think the last few months where it's been very much promoted of this RoboDoc series, I think people forgot we've actually interviewed another 40-odd people for parts 2, 3, TV series and comic book, and people forgot that. It's kind of got lost. It's like, go onto the Internet Movie Database, you can see fucking Tom Noonan's name and John Castle and Robert Burt. So there's fucking loads more in terms of footage, which again, I think I may have said back in the day about even this series, can we do something at the end with regards to legacy? And I think it would have convoluted it in terms of obviously dropping people in for the sake of it. And again, I think, credit to Eastwood. I think that was a conversation we had. It was like, do we just want to show someone's face because they're in the third film? It's about the first, when it's about the first. So there's so much extra footage. And I mean, Eastwood can tell you in a second about the bonus features, and probably tell you list what they are, because it has been advertised now. By the time it comes out, I think they'll probably be available on Apple and stuff like that. But there is so much, and there's a season 2 and season 3 ready. Not ready. Nearly another 10 years they'll be out. But I mean, Eastwood, do you want to mention just the bonus features and what you've achieved there?
Yeah. So we've got a Robo Team tribute on there, which is steered via the Robo Team. So Stefan Dupuy, Bart Mixon, Gregor Punchatz, who were part of the Robo Team, go into detail about sort of their history before Robo, and then other little bits that we could have put in the documentary and it would have worked, but it's, again, I think it works nicely as its own sort of feature with just those guys running it. We've got some nice graphics on the guns and information on the weapons, like in intricate detail for those people, because for those people that know the RoboCop firearms site, I think there's a wiki about the firearms in RoboCop. There's so many guns, and Ed Newmeyer was in charge of tasking everybody with the guns, and Randy Moore is involved in that, who was the weapons master. We've got a video game feature that Chris cut together with Gary Bracey, who ran Ocean Software, which is a lovely piece about the history of the Ocean RoboCop game and all the arcade versions of that. What else have we got?
Quotes.
There's some more stuff about Verhoeven and his sort of like intricate, I guess, sort of like anecdotes and story moments from each of the cast members, him being involved in some of the casting sessions and things like that with some of the women.
I can imagine. Oh man,
there's so much. I'm going blank now, but there's like an hour. I think it's like an hour.
We got that little piece on Weller as well, haven't we? That one about
there's some stuff on Weller.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've definitely milked it, but I think we've contained it in the right way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't outstay its welcome. As much as you obviously say, like, yes, I'd love to have more. I think, we were lucky that we were able to see this project through as we had always, we certainly intended for a long time. But I think at the same time, there is that art sometimes of going, okay, that's the sweet spot. I think that's what the doc does. And then, for the avid Ravenous fan like yourself, there's the hour's worth of bonus content and even 10 minutes amongst that with me and Eastwood. But in itself, that's quite, it's nice to be able to do that as well, because it was a bloody journey. I mean, this took us from LA primarily. We were shooting in Burbank. Eastwood and I did a trip up to San Francisco, Berkeley, to get Phil Tippett. Then we all hopped over to Dallas, then New York. And then I think the following year, Gary and myself and Adam went to Munich to get Jost Vacano, the DP.
Mhm.
The games guy, he's down in Surrey, not far from us, as is the guy who did the comic books, lives about an hour away from me. So it's so nice to be able to kind of like do a little piece that sort of showcases like, hey, this fucking trip took us everywhere, like it really
yeah,
did.
man.
Kind of covered, all sorts of parts of the globe. And so I think it's just nice to be able to reflect on that a bit, to be fair, because it was a heck of a journey.
Awesome. Yeah, it really, really was. And I'm happy to see the love today of people putting out the reviews and everything. I'm excited to go and listen to them. But one last final question. What is next? Gary, any Chris or Eastwood, whoever wants to go first. What do you guys got in the pipeline right now?
It's really hard because this is so fucking big, and then what we've got coming out next, obviously, is a backlog of some of our projects. So it's going to be like we're going to go shoot up here now, RoboCop, and it's not being disrespectful to our next project because I love it. Go down here a little bit with the next one because it's just a different beast completely. So we've got obviously a 4-part series of Police Academy coming out, which is covering all 7 films, TV series, cartoon series.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean we've got everybody from Gutenberg to Hugh Bailey. I mean everybody who's alive. Most people, that's really nasty. A few people have passed away since we filmed it, as has happened with RoboCop. Most of our projects, people die before we release them. So that's the next thing coming out for the 40th anniversary of Police Academy next year in 2024. Obviously, there's season 2 and 3 over the next few years. Hopefully, with Screenbox, they've obviously got first refusal on contractually optional on season 2 and 3 of RoboDoc, which cover the second film, third film, TV series, comics legacy. And then we're just in conversation now. We've had a few ideas in terms of the next project. I know there's things we want to do. Eastwood mentioned something the other day, which kind of made my brain start ticking. And I'm thinking, you know what? Because we've just done this and it's so good, if we could show that person a clip of this, maybe we might entice them to do a documentary on Last Action Hero. Maybe we can get Charles. We can get
that's
Charles.
Another really good movie that I love.
We know where Danny
just pie in the sky from me. It was like just sit down with Arnie and John McTiernan and Charles Dance for a film that flopped. That I know Chris I idolized that film.
There's a good story. Yeah.
I'm very much like Eastwood. I've never understood why it didn't do as well as it did. All right, apart from the Jurassic Park factor that just like E.T. did in '82 dominated the office.
I think
never understood why Last Action Hero never got the credit. It wears its humor.
Such a good movie.
And it's just so good.
It was too ahead of its time. If it would have come out maybe 15 years later, I think it would have been massive. I think it was just too ahead of its time. The whole meta thing, which is obviously that's the thing now, is to be self-referential and Arnold passing Robert Patrick in another character and Stallone's the Terminator in the blockbuster. Like all that stuff was just so fun, and I think it was just too ahead of its time. And then, like Chris said, it just came out where you had this juggernaut in Jurassic Park, but. Arnie's really sort of I guess he's ashamed of it. His pride got knocked. The fact that this film came out and didn't make as much money as it should have done, and it cost a fortune. But I just think that film for me is phenomenal. It's an absolute 5 out of 5.
I think that's the approach we go, and I think something when we want to look. I think after Eastwood said it the other day, I've been thinking about it, and I think again it's that mantra. Someone we think we can't do it. Let's try and do something like that. I think there's people out there. I know about a few years ago, it might have been Eastwood or Chris who found Danny, the kid, on Facebook where he was. And I think there's people we've already interviewed on other projects who worked on that film. So that's something I think us three talk about soon. Obviously, we're talking to Brandon from Screenbox about potential projects because obviously we've had a great relationship with Screenbox and obviously Cineverse. And I think we'd like to do something original for them in terms of a doc series or a documentary. Maybe if they have contacts, Alex may be listening to Arnie. You never know.
Let's make it happen, everybody. Come on.
Yeah, but I think we said a few months ago we wanted to get this out, get the UK release done as well, and then start thinking about what's next. So Chris has had a baby recently. He had a baby a year ago, but less than a year ago. Lots of things have been in our lives changing. So I think we're at a time, maybe in a few months' time, where we can start sitting down and really thinking about it and get the backlog done. We have got Night of the Demons to come out, but that's another story. yeah, as I mentioned that Brandon's listening, you need to buy it off us quick. So yeah,
I think, yeah, I like the idea of sort of changing things up, and I think you don't. I mean, let's face it, the well is drying up in terms of like popular IPs. Friday the 13th's been done, Nightmare on Elm Street's been done, Chainsaw Massacre I'd love to cover, but again, that's been done, and unfortunately, a lot of the original cast are
Yeah,
not with it.
that'd be a hard one.
And I think for me, it's kind of like looking towards, something like Last Action Hero that's got a good story to it.
yeah,
It's not
story
just a
important.
of. And I think the angle that'd be most important, and it'd probably be a challenge, but is to really pluck out Schwarzenegger's feelings about it. You know what I mean? Unpack it and process it. But another thing I'd like to look at is kind of, I think, good topics is films that never got made. And I know one in the last couple of years by a certain South African director to pick up a franchise. I always just think, especially with the concept art that went out of the Aliens and Michael Biehn and Sigourney Weaver, to me, that feels like, my God, what I would do to see something that's part making of, part actually let's tell the story through visuals, which I think they kind of touched upon a bit with the original idea of Alien with that memory doc they did, Jodorowsky's Dune. So stuff like that. I think that's what I quite enjoy about our projects, and hopefully it shows. There is a lot of cross-pollinating, but I think certainly if you look at what's come out in the last 2 years, you've got a character profile with Robert Englund. You've got a good, solid kind of making of a film and tapping into reality with Pennywise, with Coulrophobia. And then you've got this, which is just like a fucking scene by scene, unpack every detail kind of thing. So I do like the idea of like kind of changing gears a bit per project as well, just to keep things fresh a bit, I think.
And I think the Robert Doc kind of was a good project for us, and Eastwood supported on that as well, because it was about somebody's career, and we weren't
exactly
tied down to one film, and we had a lot more flexibility there in regards to obviously film use and obviously and different genres to observe. There's drama and there's comedy, there's horror, a wealth of different people who can come in as film experts to come in and talk about a career. I think that was really nice for us to do, and I liked that. I think it gave us a lot more freedom. It was difficult at the same time because we weren't used to doing it. We've discussed obviously doing projects like that in the future. We've got a lot, and I think what's really, again, I'm not going on about it. It sounds like I'm really trying to kiss ass to Screenbox, but and again, if there's anybody else out there wants to give us a better contract, no, I'm joking. But in terms of,
I'll edit that out.
yeah. No, but I think what's happened is it's elevated our kind of like status in we had a good reputation in terms of quality of documentaries. We've even with like the Leviathan and Brewster. Obviously, our reputation is a bit shit in terms of obviously delivering for fans on Kickstarters. That's never going to happen again at Kickstarter or Indiegogo. We've learned our lessons from that, and we hope people watch these and see what the wider problems have been, the way they have, and why we've had to engage.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think what it's done for us now, having 3 legitimate documentaries released worldwide, also released in the US professionally and officially, and obviously in the UK, and I know we'll be releasing Pennywise in Germany soon. That will be followed then by ROBODOC and by
That's awesome.
Hollywood Dreams. It's allowed us to become professional documentarians, and hopefully it will do stuff for people like Chris regards to his directing and getting some gigs from that, some freelance work. I know it's going to make it, once people see this, Eastwood's going to be like inundated with requests and job offers. You need to get an agent. I'll do it for you, Eastwood. But we argue, but it doesn't matter. With regards to his editing, his motion graphic skills. So I think we're in a situation now where we can actually sell ourselves. We don't have to sell ourselves, as much as we did before when we approach somebody and go, we're the people that made ROBODOC, we made Pennywise, Hollywood Dreams. We want to do a project on you now. Hopefully they'll know who we are. And the reputation will obviously follow us and make life a little bit easier for us in these projects. Hence why I want to obviously investigate what we talked about the other day, because I think now we've got the pedigree and the CV to do it.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And you guys are really doing something that a lot of other people aren't doing. And I thank you for all the time that you have given me today to talk about this, and that you created something that I love from something that I love. And for, Screenbox always being the best out there and allowing my show and myself to see these things and support them and push them out there. It means a lot as a fan and as a viewer and someone who consumes media and film a lot to see that you guys are doing something that a lot of people aren't doing is amazing. And I thank everybody for doing this. And I cannot wait to see what else is in store and to have all these physically with me. I want that really badly. I need physical releases of things.
Oh, they're coming. They're coming. Don't worry.
Can I just ask Dustin, because this is new for us, and especially for me, these guys have been on press tours before for other documentaries, but like we're so close to this project, I'd love to know like what some of your favorite bits from the doc.
Oh man, there's so many. There's so many because it's so long, but like seeing Peter, that the chills that I got from his entrance, like that still goes through my head. I know that's like in the trailer that you guys have, but to see everything leading up to that, because you don't see him for a little bit, and then bam, there he is, and you're like, the voice is there. The editing on his voice was amazing. Like, you guys nailed that, and just hearing him say the quotes and seeing how like charismatic he was, and also now seeing that with Paul and seeing his reactions on things, that's what I really like the most, is seeing people react to what other people are saying about them. That's what really got me. And I guess like the other thing is seeing how they were creating like these filters, you know, before digital was even there, how they had to layer lines on top of things. That's always interesting to me because I'm like, how were they doing this back then? They didn't have computers. And then seeing how the splicing of the editing was going and whether they were doing it, that was really, really cool. And then seeing all these alternative takes that never made it or they were cut from there, and then having all those explanations. That's what I like the most. I love seeing things that you didn't know were there, and then also be excited when you see the guy that you are hoping to see show up in such a badass way. Amazing. Nailed it.
We lucked out massively with that, because I distinctly remember saying, you know, we if anything, the first thing that was on my mind, you know, couldn't wait to do when we got Weller is go, there you go, all you bastards saying that, oh, you can't get Peter Weller. And we all sort of said, didn't we, like, right, we'll do this promo and this and that. And obviously we were told, as Gary said, he's not going to do quotes, he's not going to do this and that. And I remember sort of saying like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you've got a thing of him like getting his mic ready, going like, are we ready to go?
Is it on?
And he and without any direction there, he just did it. Like, I remember just watching from the second, like, the camera's rolling, and you just heard him go, "Are we ready? Are we rolling? Okay, test." I'm like, fucking hell, he's given us that and 10 times more. So it was just a no-brainer. So it worked as the trailer, and testament to Eastwood with the whole ethos of you've got to build up these characters. You don't just go, oh, and there's Peter Weller, by the way. Fuck, it just, what an entrance. So yeah, I get goosebumps watching that. Or, I mean, I watch that trailer quite often, to be honest. It's just 30 seconds of like, yes, we did it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. It is an epic intro.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for your time, and for Screenbox and Alex, who was listening. You guys are amazing. And thank you for everything that you do and for what you do for the fans. It's definitely something that everybody should be checking out. And it will be on Screenbox August 29th. Super excited. Thank you guys so much.
No, thanks you for having us again. We really, thank you.